Hey everybody, it's your host, the Ostomy Guy. We've been listening to everybody else's story and I've been kind of hiding from it. But the time is here. My story's out. The Ostomy Guy story, Memoirs of a Bagman. Finally published and ready to buy. www.amazon.com. Go buy one for yourself and one for a loved one. You won't regret it.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ostomy Guy podcast. I'm your host, Austin, the OG. My book is out, thankfully. I was stressed to the max trying to get that thing done, but now that it's done, it's like a breath of fresh air. I can think a little bit more. But now I'm back to getting my podcast done, and today, at the end of October, which is the month of Ostomy Awareness Day, which was October 5th, I get to talk to another, what we call Ostomates. I met her on Instagram. I met her as, her name is Lily, which I'm assuming she goes by because of her ileostomy, which she got in 2014 because of complications due to ulcerative colitis. And so I'm going to give her a holler and we'll get to kind of jump through her life and see how she's been doing. And you know, ever since I started talking to her, she's always kind of talked to me like she's my mom and I'm her son, and I'd kind of play around with my little lingo that I have. And she has kids that are a little bit older, not quite as old as me, but a little bit older, and so we've really gotten along. So I've always been a mama's boy, and I've always needed and loved people who are caring and maternal. And our conversations that we've had, even just through Instagram and through email, she has a wonderful heart, and I'm looking forward to visiting with her. So let's reach out to her.
So I was just sitting here waiting for you to call, just reading a little something.
Yeah.
It's a great book, dude. I love it. It's intense. Like, it's not for people that have not a lot of experience with medical stuff. Like if you were to just pick it up and say you were a family member or something, and your family member hasn't really shared much about their story, why they have their ostomy or whatever, they pick it up and start reading this. It's scary shit in the beginning. I'm like, oh my gosh. I went through a lot of stuff when I was a kid too, but you win.
That's awesome. Well, good. So
yeah.
What Barbara's talking about is obviously my book, The Ostomy Guy Story, Memoirs of a Bagman, which just came out in October. I'm trying my very best. Self-publishing is pretty difficult. To slowly work my way through people with ostomies, with Crohn's, with colitis, their nurses, the surgeons who do these surgeries, and hopefully some gastrointestinal doctors as well. And I'm one at a time, just slowly sending it. I have a bunch of people here in Wichita, Barb, who I have reached out to that have written me checks so that I can buy several copies of this book and mail it to all these different places, and are at least trying to help me distribute it because of their response to the book. So I've been
honestly, Austin, it's a point of view that medical professionals don't see.
Yeah.
Unless you've lived it. I mean, you can't make up this stuff. I mean, this is not, I feel like it would be so helpful to have a copy, if I don't know if we're on the video or not, that this book in ostomy clinics, in places, people that find out that they're going to have an ostomy.
Yeah.
Or maybe they've lived through Crohn's, and, hey, somebody can relate to what I've been going through all these years, right? And so I just think it's really well written. I didn't know it was self-published. Maybe I didn't read that part.
I didn't really.
But I'm really. What's that?
I didn't put in there that it was self-published. I don't think it shows up. It's just, there just is no publisher on it. I had several offers from a number of publishers, and it kind of just got in the hands of them. So what had happened was I started writing on Ash Wednesday because I gave up streaming and I gave up TV for Lent. So I started writing on Ash Wednesday what I thought was going to be a blog. And I sent, because I've never written anything. I write letters. I do a lot of, just because of my work, I do a lot of interacting and networking and marketing and stuff. But I've never written much of anything. And so I sent it to some people, and the response was huge. And I was like,
Yeah.
come on. I mean, you can't be serious. So then I handed it to a couple other people who it got into the hands of someone over at the Atlantic. It got in the hands of a number of people.
Awesome.
At different outlets, news outlets. And I got a number of responses from those publishers. And I was like, maybe this is the real deal. So I just kind of grinded it out and wrote it. And
it's so real. That's what I appreciate about it. It's just so real. It's just, it is what it is, you know, and I like how you wrote it. It's good. It's going to give people so much hope, people that have been living in that same situation. And like I said, I feel like gastro doctors need to read it, nurses, wound care nurses, you know, all these people that help us when we're going through our stuff. They don't really hear all of this. They don't really know how it feels for us, you know?
Yeah, and I think I tried to focus on, and that's kind of what hopefully you and I kind of dive into a little bit, but I tried to really focus on the emotional baggage that it's not like, it's not the illnesses that really, I mean, the illness and the symptoms and all that stuff, they're hard in and of themselves, but that isn't the hardest part. It's that when you aren't disabled from something, and you've got to keep, life is hard when you're healthy. This world
Amen.
is
Amen.
so difficult. And then you throw having to deal with all this on top of the norms, the norms of everyday life. And then we live in a culture that is totally detached from an understanding of suffering. And so you just constantly suppress all those emotions that make you feel weaker than the people next to you. And so I wrote it the way that I wrote it because those are the feelings that I'd felt for so many years, that I'd thought for so long. And I talk to people on a regular basis just here in Wichita, but I'll tell you what,
you're going to find out that this is so universal. And one of my focuses is trying to work with parents of kids to listen to their kids when they talk to them about simple things like, you know, it hurts when I poop.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of where my focus is because of what I went through as a young girl. But like, you look at your pictures. I love the pictures that you added, and you look at the pictures of you as a young boy. What are we taught? You know, suck it up and move on. It's okay. You can get through this, you know, and nobody really knows what goes on. And you're right. That mental piece it's so huge.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of you. Good job. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Well, thank you very much. So let's back up a little bit. And, you know, our listeners don't know, but, you know, we have just been visiting and talking, getting to know each other over social media a little bit. But I only know what I've kind of been able to read and stalk you and learn about you online. So I'm really looking forward to just kind of, let's back up a little bit and tell me a little bit about your story, about you a little.
Well, I grew up having ulcerative colitis as early as I can remember. I was a little girl. The earliest memories I think I have was maybe first grade having problems. And I went to a Catholic school, and that was back in the 70s. I know you're Catholic as well. So, you know, we are kind of taught how to kind of suffer in silence.
Offer it up, Barb.
Yeah, seriously. One of the things what stands out in my head so much is when I was a real little, I think I was in first or second grade. And I remember the exact spot on the freeway. I asked my mom what happens when you go poop and you bleed. And I was just curious because it had been happening to me and I was having all this pain and stuff. And I'll never forget in that moment where we were. And she said, "Oh, it's so serious. You have to go to the hospital. You could die." And then that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
And because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm never telling her ever.
Yeah. Wow.
All I heard was go in the hospital, you know?
Yeah.
And I was scared to death. And so now I'm 51 years old, fast forward all these years, lived my whole life through up until 5 years ago, having to have my colon removed and have a permanent ileostomy, which gave me freedoms I didn't even realize were there. I'm at the point of your book where you're talking about it, and the adjustment period of kind of walking around with the bag stuck to your belly. And, that was, to me, that exchange of being done with all things rectal, which is one of my favorite hashtags, was worth it. Like just beyond worth it. I suffered a lot with, some of the same things you did. I didn't have the abscesses, but I definitely had the pain, the raw skin, constantly going to the restroom. I went to an all Catholic school, and I was the only child in the entire school. And it was a 1st through 8th grade school that was allowed to get up at any moment and go to the bathroom. Okay. So everybody in the entire school knew that. So that doesn't make you stick out like a sore thumb. So that's how I grew up. And so the kids had fun with that at my expense, and again, you grow in those kind of schools, just everything's kids are they're real good about how they stick to you. But in and out of the hospital a lot growing up. In the 70s, they didn't know there was no IBD. There was no ulcerative colitis in children. They rarely were finding it in adult women only.
Yeah.
And, so it was awful, going through trying to figure out what it was. I had more people, sticking things up my butt than I wanted to, that I cared to think about for many years. It took a lot of therapy and work on my end to be able to actually talk about it as an adult and separate myself from how I felt about all those feelings. And we want to help kids possibly in that same spot, that can't really talk about it.
So when were you officially diagnosed?
I was diagnosed I was almost 11, so 10, say. It's kind of cloudy because, of course, I'm 51. So the further I get away from that time frame, I don't remember. I just remember spending, I got to go home to have a birthday. I got to go home the day before my birthday to have my birthday at home and go back the next day into the hospital. And I think that was my 10th birthday or my 11th birthday. And then it was shortly after that they decided to diagnose me with chronic ulcerative colitis. And I remember they had a doctor fly out from the East Coast. I was in San Francisco at the time, and he was doing his fellowship and specializing in gastroenterology. And he was the one that actually made the diagnosis. And I'll always remember him. I was so young, but you hear things. I mean, I think adults forget that kids, they hear and they listen to what's happening right outside the door of the room, and so.
That's exactly right. What were some of because having ulcerative colitis at such a young age, after the diagnosis, that was back in the 70s. So what were they putting you on drugs? What kind of stuff for medication? Do you remember what they
I remember being on really high doses of prednisone. I always had an IV. I always had an NG tube. Okay. I had stuff I don't really know what exactly was in the IV because I don't remember that, but I do remember conversations about prednisone and how it was going to impact me later in life because I had been on it for so long, like years. Yeah. And it was a really high dose. And they kept me on it basically to keep me alive, to keep everything kind of, masked. And because I was bleeding so bad and I couldn't keep anything in me, and they were feeding me with an NG tube just to try. I just was kind of losing the battle for a while.
So was malnutrition and dehydration a big deal for you? Was that regular?
Huge. Now or then? Then it was huge. Yeah. I was very malnutrition, malnourished, excuse me. And they had to keep an IV going all the time. I mean, I couldn't eat or drink anything, nothing. I couldn't keep anything in. It would come out one way or the other. Yeah. And so the NG tubes, those are horrible too. I think those are probably the worst thing.
Explain what those are.
It's a nasal gastrical. It's a tube that goes down your nose, through the back of your throat, down to your stomach. They used to use it back in the 70s to give you nutrition. I'm sure it's used for the same thing now. Praise God, I haven't had to have one in so many years. But it was so uncomfortable. And when you're a little kid and they're putting those things in, it's awful,
Yeah.
so, and it causes you to vomit. You get all these, your throat bleeds. It's a mess, but, yeah, it's to keep nourishment in you. It was, some kind of liquid they were trying to keep in me just to keep me going.
Were you playing any sports or anything, or could you?
No, I couldn't play any sports. My mom was a single mom, and she was convinced that I didn't have the stamina to do anything. So that was always what I was told. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. So I stopped trying after a while.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to do things the other kids were doing. I was always no. The answer was always no. So I stopped asking. And I got real depressed real young.
Well, so I'll follow up with that here in a second, but with your mom, you said initially you didn't ever want to bring anything up in front of her because of that initial comment. How was it after your diagnosis with her and your relationship in regards to dealing with all that?
When she found out, it was probably about a year after that comment in the car that she found out, because I had been bleeding so bad I couldn't keep it from her.
Yeah.
And of course she was worried, and she was going through a lot, and I kind of took on as a kid, watching her struggle as a single mom and fighting with my dad. So I just didn't want to add anything to her plate. And I think that's why I probably kept it from her.
Yeah.
But when she found out, she was compassionate. It was like she did everything to try and keep it together for me. But, she almost essentially put me in a bubble, and she never really wanted me to do anything. So she just wanted to make sure I was okay.
So how was that socially? Were you able to have decent relationships with your friends from school and having them over? Or was it just you were the unsocial bird who just stayed home?
Yep.
You kind of had your little world that you stayed in, and people kind of came into and out of it.
That's exactly right. She never let me go spend the night at anyone's house. She was always worried I might have an episode or something could happen that the parent couldn't handle. I didn't get to join any clubs. I one time got to do, it was Campfire Girls or something. But if I even had a little bit of an episode, she'd keep me home. So it's just like I never got to push myself very much. And so, yeah, my social life sucked. I didn't really have one. My neighbor was my friend, and he was cool. He's still my friend to this day. And we went all through school together. And, he was the one that was still my friend, even though nobody else wanted to be friends with a sick kid, So, yeah, my social life pretty much sucked.
When you start? Were you able to kind of research ulcerative colitis, how many people had it, and that kind? Do you remember any statistics from back then, like how many people had it, or?
The verbiage that was told to my mom, that, the things you remember, right, was this is unheard of in children, so we don't know what to do with her. So we're just going to kind of keep her going with the prednisone. And they put me on sulfidine, and I was on that up and until I had my ostomy surgery 5 years ago. So I was on that steady drug I did the math roughly, and I took over 900,000 of those pills in my lifetime. It was an insane amount. And so, yeah, it was just unheard of was the term in children. So there was no internet. There was no, I couldn't go to the library because, I might catch something. Yeah, I swear, like I said, my mom put me in a bubble.
Yeah.
So, encyclopedias, no rich people had those. So no, it wasn't until the internet became a thing, and I was already in my 20s. And at that point, I was trying to ignore the fact that I had ulcerative colitis and live a life that I thought I could have had, because now I was an adult and my mom could no longer suppress me. Right.
Yeah.
So, so I really didn't do much research until I started to have a family. And then it was like, okay. And even at that point, and that was back in the 90s, I couldn't get very far with medical, the doctors I saw, and I live in a little town, and they're like, oh no, it's not genetic. You're fine. You can have a family, And so I'm like, okay. And, I'd ask, and I'd do as little research as I could. We didn't really have a lot back then either. So, let's have a kid. And it was, I guess I really started finding more about it, sadly, how popular it was maybe when I was in my 30s, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did you go to college close to home? Did you?
I didn't go to college. That was another thing that was kind of never an option.
Okay.
It wasn't, I didn't go.
Yeah. So let's go into your 30s. What are you doing? What's your life like then? You're learning more about?
So in my 30s, I'm learning more about it, but I'm also, now a mom. And so I've got 2 kids, and so my life became, once when my son was born, I was in my late 20s, and then my second one was born in my early 30s. So my life became I went through a period of time where I was kind of in a remission, and I was really enjoying that because it was good to be able to be with my kids. I did have flare-ups and I did have bouts, but they weren't horrible where I had to end up in the hospital. It was manageable, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so my kids would come to the bathroom with me, and they just knew that mommy had to go to the bathroom a lot.
Yeah.
So, we'd read stories where I'd be sitting on the throne reading stories to my kids because that's just how it was normal.
Yeah.
So that was my life, was always about being surrounded by knowing where every toilet was, being uber aware of that, always worried about what would happen if, I was always on the brink of, if I started to feel like I needed to go, I better know and have kind of an approximation how many seconds it was going to take me to get there. Right. So
like one of the biggest, one of the hardest side effects, at least initially for people that have ulcerative colitis, is the inability to control your bowels. And by that, it's like when you have to go, you're running like an old man to the urinal. Like you are hurrying to the toilet because you're.
Dude, you think you find muscles you didn't know you had because you're, I used to dig my fingernails into my leg as hard as I could, so that would make me focus on that, so I wouldn't be in such a panic about trying to make it to the bathroom in time. And this is while I'm driving.
Yeah.
Trying to make it.
So when I was, that's why I because people with ulcerative colitis can understand, that's why I put in the book how I was a delivery driver, how I drove around, and when that was my job, I constantly had my norms because I had my route, and I'd have places I'd need to swing in and use the bathroom. And once you and I'm a friendly guy. When I got to use your bathroom, I'm going to be really super duper nice. And I'm really good at that. But I made a lot of good friends, and that was a big deal because, having to navigate that job while having ulcerative colitis was, it was brutal, but it was still awesome. It wasn't terrible, but
you knew where every clean toilet was in town. You were the guy to hang out with when you were going to a party with friends or something,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Let's ask Austin. He knows where the clean toilet is.
And I'll tell you over and over, I even now, I still go to the same places.
Oh, yeah?
I know where they are, and I really, especially now having an ostomy, knowing where you can find a good public restroom that's got proper handicap type stalls and so on is a really big deal.
And it's clean. That's my thing. It's got to be clean.
Yeah. And so there's one thing. So with not being able to control your bowels, like with sports, for me, it'd be like when you can't control it, you're like sprinting. And if you're in the middle of class, if you're on an airplane, you pick a spot where it is not convenient. Go on a retreat. I went to Catholic school. We went on retreats to places in the country, and you end up sprinting from a bonfire to a bale of hay or a tree, and you're squatting behind there using leaves and using underwear and leaving them and praying to God no one finds them before you guys head home. And it's like so many.
And you're in pain and you don't want nobody to know, so you're just grinning. Yeah, it's cool. We're all,
right.
You got to go to those camps. My mom wouldn't even let me go.
So, you know, it's funny. So while you're even like when you're in class, so being in class and you're sitting there smiling your way through class, what ends up happening because your mental capacity is 100% on your gut.
Yep.
What's going in, what people are saying, you might be feeling that way in the middle of a conversation. You might feel like it right now in this podcast. And you're sitting there and you might seem like the flake in the room, which I was anyways. I'm a total flake and I'm super ADHD. But then you had Crohn's on top of that. And it's like, I'd miss things. I'd be sitting there trying to listen to an awesome talk from somebody, and I'd miss the whole thing because all I'm trying to do is not freak out about my stomach.
Yeah, or you not try and shit your pants because you're sitting there. I can get through this. Yeah, okay. And you're like digging your hands and, you know, nails into your hands or whatever because you don't want to excuse yourself when someone's talking to you.
Man, so let's fast forward and tell me, as things they had to have started taking a turn after your time of remission, where you probably started getting worse and it was probably accumulating. I want to know a little bit and where your head was at with it getting worse and seeing the option or knowing the option of your ostomy out there and how you thought or responded to that leading up to getting it.
Here's the interesting thing. Are you there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Here's the interesting thing. I never knew ostomy was an option.
Okay.
So I never had a gastro doctor. I had a gastro doctor for several years, probably over a decade, where and I didn't realize this at the time, that he was not very well versed with people that had had long ulcerative colitis.
Mm-hmm.
So he had done colonoscopies on me and seen things and I guess didn't know what they were. He was on vacation and I was having a bad flare up. And this was like 6 months before my surgery. And they took me in right away, the guy that was on call for him. And I still will stand by this. It was a God thing. His sister had ulcerative colitis.
Yeah.
So he took he got the call that I was in the doctor's office, looked at my file and saw how thick it was, did a little bit of research. And he said, he wanted me in his office the next day. They put me on prednisone right away and he got me in his office, shook my hand, introduced himself to me. And the first thing out of his mouth was, "Hi, I'm Dr. blah, blah, blah. You're looking at surgery. Have a seat. We're going to discuss it." And I was like, wait a minute, what the hell? So, wait a minute, what? Sorry. So, because cancer started developing in my colon, it started to very early stages. And it was in the healthy part of my colon, which was 1/3 of my colon that was still healthy. And so they found precancerous cells in that part. And so he said, "Okay, here's your choice. Here's the doctor. This is what you're going to do." And his sister had a successful J pouch. So he thought that would be the route I would go because I was young. I already had my kids. So I thought, so I had to wrap my brain around this for a minute. And that's when I dove into social media. And that's when because I really wasn't that big online with my kids when they were small. I didn't want them in front of a computer. So I didn't sit in front of a computer.
Yeah.
So, that's when I went to town on just research. And that, like I said, that was about 5.5 years ago. And I realized how many people were affected. And that's when my eyes really got opened to the whole thing. And then when I met the surgeon, the colorectal surgeon, I didn't know what to expect. And I walked in there thinking, okay, this is going to be one of 3 surgeries, is back to back. Your head's still not wrapped all the way around it. And she puts it up on the wall and she says, "Okay, you have 2 choices. You can do this, the right side, where it's the 3 surgeries, J pouch, the whole thing, or you can go here once and done. Then we take everything out, and you probably won't have to deal with chemotherapy and all that kind of stuff." So kind of a little more proactive.
Yeah.
And and so then she did the whole that. So that was when I found out that I was going to have surgery.
And so you had everything removed?
Well, I did some more research, actually got a hold of that same doctor from when I was a kid. And he was,
really?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. He was actually at the hospital. I went there to walk around to have closure from all the crap that I had gone through and found out he was on staff there. And it was a trip. I left him a message, 40 years later, right? Left him a message. We're sitting in the hotel room in San Francisco, my husband and I, and my phone rings, and it's like 9:30 at night, and it's this doctor. And he heard my message, and he was in Chicago. He goes, I don't know, Barbara. He goes, I don't even check my messages on the weekends. And I heard your voice, and I had to call you. And I said, oh, wow, okay. So I gave him the whole story, and he said, you've been dealing with this since you were 9 years old. He said, you need to take everything out, or you're going to be in for the fight of your life, and you might not make it. He goes, take it all out. And that was the only confirmation I needed, because I was on the fence. What do I do? I'm praying like, okay, God, just make it real clear, because I'm dense. I need, like, right now, just tell me what to do and I will do it, And that was the confirmation I got. And it was clear at that point. Okay, just take it all. And, I'm so grateful because, like I said, done with all things rectal. I never have to wipe my ass again or be raw or any of that stuff, some issues after surgery for a bit, but I've been blessed. It's been great.
What a beautiful story. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So
yeah.
So you went into the surgery knowing what all was going to go down. It wasn't an emergency surgery. How long after that appointment, after that phone call, did you schedule the surgery? And how were you mentally kind of going into it between then and having it done?
I was a hot mess. I'm not going to lie. I did some therapy. Doctor took me off work. He said, you need to spend some time figuring this out for yourself so you can wrap your brain around it. He told me in January that I was looking at surgery. He went, that particular gastroenterologist, who became my gastroenterologist after that moment. He sent all my stuff to Cleveland Clinic. He took about 3 months and had it just triple checked just to make sure that I saw what he saw, which was great. In the meantime, I was doing my own processing, and I had my surgery in May. So it was about a 5-month period, 4.5, 5 months, where I had that time to really research, think about it, pray about it. And then, there's no turning back. I mean, the time goes by, you think you're ready, and then it happens, and you look down, you're like, oh, okay, so this is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I had enough time to get enough research and enough time to be accepting of what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then once it happened, then it was a little space of time where I'd say a good few months where it was like, okay, wait, there's no rewind. This is it, And then I struggled with body image anyway, my whole life, because I always felt like people could see something was wrong with me.
Yeah.
Now, for probably about a year, I thought the only thing people could see when they looked at me was this big bulge on my belly.
Right. Isn't that funny how you think like that? How it's all you can think about, because that's like the center of your life for now.
Right.
And you project that onto everybody, and you literally think that's all everybody sees and is thinking about when you're around them.
And it's hard to shake, right? You have your friends, like my dear friends would say, Barbara, I look at your face. I don't look at your stomach.
Yeah.
And okay, but I know it's there. Yeah, but nobody else does. And then that creates that, then you need to find your tribe. Okay, where are these people that understand what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Right. So that really helped, that online support and presence. I'm actually going to Tennessee tomorrow, and I'm hopefully going to get to meet the Ostomy Diaries girl, because she seems like a trip.
Yeah.
I can't wait to meet her. I want to go to Taco Bell with her. I'm not going to lie. They have a great vegetarian crunch wrap thing that my daughter introduced me to, and I'm all over it. So hopefully we'll get to do that together.
Do me a favor. Tell her about my book after you're done with it, because I've been trying to reach out to her on social media.
Dude, I'm taking it with me. I am taking it with me, and I'm going to tell her all about it. My plan is to finish it before I go there, because I'll probably finish it tonight. But
okay. Well, go on
So
Amazon and review it when you're done with it. I always forget to tell people that, but apparently that's a big deal. So go on and.
I think so, but yeah, oh, definitely. I'll be reviewing it online. I'll be reviewing it on Amazon.
Okay,
So yeah, no, because go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, so social media was where you kind of started finding a community of people that had your same issues and that you could kind of relate with, your tribe, as you called it. Did is that kind of where you networked with, is online? Did you have a local support group you were going to, or did you seek that out at all? Or do you even still have one? Do you have one now? Or was it all always online?
Okay, so no, I actually started going to a support group that was about an hour from here. Like, we live in the Sierra foothills in California, and there's not a lot up where we live.
Yeah.
So I went down the hill for about an hour, and I started going to this support group there. And I was the youngest person by about 30 years.
Yeah.
And I went for a good while, maybe a few months. Actually met one gal that went one time I was there. We became friends, and we're closer in age, and she actually lives up by me. So that was really cool. That was kind of the purpose of that meeting, I think, was to bring us together. And then I started a local support group here in our town. And it was so exciting. I'm like, I want to do this. But I want to do it under my terms, because my terms were, I wanted to create a community of ostomates, like locally. Like, here's what happened to me. This is why I did it. I'm at the mall with my daughters, and we're looking for a dress for one of them for some dance or something. I don't remember. I had a bag leak. I had the most horribly hodgepodged supplies in my car with me that nothing matched, because I was pretty new to the ostomy thing. Yeah. So I'm literally in the stall at Macy's trying to piece this shit together so I could at least just get to the car so we can go home. Yeah. And I've got all three of my girls with me, and bless them, they were all really good about it. We figure it all out. You know, I get covered up enough so I get myself to the car. You know, I let them purchase their things as I'm handling stuff at home. And I thought, no, I want a community of people locally that if somebody calls me and said, hey, Barbara, I'm stuck in the mall at Macy's, can you bring me an ostomy change? I'm going to be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because that's what we need. You know, we need people that are going to be, so that's what spurred me to do that. So then I kind of started this little group, and we're a little small group, and it's a lot of fun. We don't have regular meetings because we can't seem to get together around the same time, but we're working on it. It's kind of, we get together at a local coffee shop, we sit around and talk and share stories, and we all get each other, right? So there's one guy, and he's surrounded by women, but it's okay because he's married and has 3 daughters, so he's used to it anyway. But, you know, we're all relatively the same age, give or take 10 years or so. And so it's kind of cool. You know, we're trying to get more people to come. So I did flyers and put them at the ostomy clinic and the hospital and all the gastro doctors, but, you know, kind of build it and they'll come, right? So.
Yeah. Well, I have a dream that in kind of what I'm doing, so there are social media people who, you know, kind of track their illness and really kind of keep you up to date with what they're doing and stuff, which I love that. Like,
totally.
So much. I would have a hard time doing that and allowing that much exposure, and it's such a beautiful thing to see the people that do that. And they have a lot of people that kind of follow them. And I say all of this because my dream with kind of doing what I'm doing, Barb, is that we can kind of it's the old we're better together idea. Whereas if we can all kind of start realizing how similar we all are and how much like unifying is needed, if we've got to be able, and I think it's possible to be, maybe there's an application we can build or something that allows us all on our phones to be able to have ready access to each other, so that when stuff like that happens, it's game on. And like when new people are starting to get ready to have an ostomy surgery, they can get linked in with this group of people. And you kind of go in and out, you know, when you're feeling a certain way. Sometimes I'm like on, and I love and can give advice, and I love talking about what I'm dealing with, and I nail it. And then there's other times that I'm just beat up on my own problems, my life, that's not quite where I'm at. And so it's like so necessary to have other people be able to step in where I might have a negative tone to everything ostomy for a period of time. I'm not going to be the guy to talk to the person who's just getting ready to go to the surgery. And so if we kind of unite and figure out how we can do this together in all these different communities and link up, we can bring so much more peace of mind. And get this, I think if we get big enough, if we get enough attention and unite enough, we can hook up with like Amazon, who's already got drones set up to where we can have, like, when you run out of stuff, you can have whatever delivered within like 6 hours. So you have your supplies. If you can't get on the app and have someone bring you something just to get you to the next day or whatever, if it's a problem like you are running out of supplies for the month, that we've got a foundation that can pay for like 7 to 20 days of supplies to get you there. Amazon will drone them to you and you can get them in a couple of hours, but something that'll help that side of this, because that's the worst. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I think the gal on Ostomy Diaries she hooked up with somebody, I agree with what you're saying. There's got to be some kind of way we can make that happen where it's not associated with social media. Because I love watching all that too. And I call it cluster post. I tend to post when I'm feeling positive and good. I tend to not post when I'm, the waves, right? Yeah. So if we can do it in a way, and I think you can make it happen, Austin, honestly, I believe in you, that we can do this linking thing, and that everything that we're talking about, like, it'll be like a live thing, but we're not on a social media type deal.
Right. No.
Oh, look, Austin's on. Hey, dude, what's up?
Right.
I mean, I would be on it more than I would be on. I love being on the Instagram thing. I've created a whole ostomy thing just so I can be there, be encouraging, maybe post when I want to post, and that's all great. And like you said, I'm just not into posting about all of that stuff. Yep. Just because I think you and I being raised Catholic, where we kind of just suffer in silence.
That's right.
We're not one to be like, it was a shitty day, damn it.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to do that. We're going to be like, we're going to find that silver lining and post that.
That's exactly
where
right.
If we had that linked thing, that would be cool, because then it could be like, you could be having a shitty day and go, oh, hey, Barb, what's up? And yeah, you don't sound so good. What's up? And we could lift each other up, and, but anyway, Ostomy Diaries, she's doing something where people can send their supplies to.
Yes.
And then they're getting them out to people that need them. And I've sent supplies to people in need several times, but yeah, that's the worst. If you don't have what you need, how are you supposed to, people don't realize, if you don't have what you need, what are you doing? You can get a Ziploc bag. I mean, we have things that we can't be without,
right.
And leave the house.
Well, I think so with my job, we use a software system that what they do is, because this software is for financial advisors all over the world. And so because all the time zones, because of different times of doing business, if you're needing support, you need it at all kinds of different times of the day. You need it right because you're usually at an appointment. And the way that they have it set up, which is how I kind of see what I'm talking about, is that there's like buttons on these apps, on their app, that you can push. So if it has to do with this or that, depending on whatever your problem is. So like you'd be able to, there are people 24 hours a day that kind of take different shifts that during your daylight hours. We've got 15 people that when you say you're having a bad day or you're dealing with this problem, that's what it is. Or like there'd be people in the Wichita area that would be on that list, and they'd be on during certain times of the day and off during certain times of the day, so that then when I would send an email out, it goes to all 10, and the first person to respond, like police officers, whoever's closest or the first person who's free, they say, I'm on it. They send a deal that says I'm on it, and then they'll go to an individual conversation with them and address it. And so you have people available that it doesn't overwhelm everybody, because it's not something you need all the time, but it allows for that 24/7 type access but we'll keep kind of talking about it and see what we can kind of get. But
I
yeah,
like the concept of it being an app where you could just kind of go, maybe you could click on their live chat, right? Or need of supplies. Okay, Susie in Bakersfield needs bags, so then we're on it. Let's send them to her. So I like that whole concept of it being an app.
I mean, there's places in Wichita where there's an ostomy closet, and they provide free supplies for people who A, can't afford them, B, are fresh out of the hospital and are trying to figure out what they need. They help people who transition through different supplies. But just being able, if we can do it right, we can kind of connect with them, connect with the nurses, because like these ostomy nurses are phenomenal, and they're driving all over the place
kidding.
And you kind of unite with like the Hollister reps and the Coloplast reps and all these places, if they're on board, and now we've got all these people that can kind of be ready and able and get us on the same platform together. I think we can build something pretty amazing that'll support the problem that exists.
Well, I'd be excited to be a part of that. I think that it would be fun, and it would really meet a huge need that a lot of people don't know is out there.
Yeah. So now after let's kind of round out a little bit of your story. So now after your surgery, after having an ileostomy and getting, a ways out and kind of navigating through the emotions of that, give me a little bit of hindsight on the solid benefits as to why you're so glad it happened, the lifestyle change that you noticed immediately, and kind of round out a little bit with the benefits of making that decision, though it was difficult.
The benefits to me were the number one thing I noticed was the freedom. Yeah. The freedom, like I felt the chain to the toilet, any toilet, pick a toilet, was broken.
Yeah.
Like someone came with some big old bolt cutters and just snapped it.
Yeah.
3 months after my surgery, we went to like Tahoe, one of our favorite places, and things that I've always wanted to try but never could because I'd be afraid I'd have to go to the bathroom in the middle of it, became an option.
Possible.
And, so I parasailed 3 months after surgery. Never in my wildest imagination did I think that was ever going to happen. Right. So it was liberating, exhilarating, and made me so thankful to be in a time where medicine could give me a second chance at living a life I didn't even know that was possible. Right.
Yeah.
So, that was the freedom. The freedom was the first big thing. Freedom from the toilet.
That's awesome. It is like a slavery when you're living.
It really is,
because you literally your house is like your safe zone, and then you have another place which might be your work or maybe school, depending on where you are or whatever. And those are the places that you surround and evolve your whole life around those locations. And when you leave your safe zone, when you leave base, it is anxiety all the time. It's constant mental capacity full.
Well, you walk out, if you can visualize walking out of the safe zone of the toilet, wherever that was, or, is for people, you walk out of that zone and you immediately walk into being enrobed in anxiety and stress.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it just becomes like your skin. You can't get rid of it because you can't stop thinking about it. And that was taken from me.
Yeah.
But living with, and that was what the ostomy took away, was all of that anxiety, being surrounded by, I got to go. I got to know where the bathroom is. How long am I going to be here? All that was gone. But the residual it was funny because I'd go to the bathroom after my surgery, and I'd sit there and I'm, oh, wait a minute, I can get up. I don't have to wait for the next wave. I can actually leave. And so that was a thing too. That was huge, but yeah, so I think,
I didn't even think about that. That's so funny.
Do you ever find yourself, you're sitting there and you're like, oh damn, I don't have to be sitting here anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, as a dude, I stand up to pee. Well, you're sitting down to pee, and I'm sitting there thinking a normal routine would be you go pee and then you wait to poop. Well, I mean, if you're going to the bathroom, sitting down, when you're used to just sitting there for 40 minutes at a time, you get 10 minutes into it, and you're like, oh shoot.
Oh damn, they're waiting dinner for me. Shoot, I was supposed to be out there. Those are the kind of things, my husband would be like, are you okay? Isn't it better now? I'm like, oh yeah, no, yeah, I was just wrapping things up. I'm coming. Yeah, you forget that you don't have to keep sitting there.
That's priceless.
It was funny. Yeah, I like to find the humor, because really, if you don't, I think it would be super sad. Like,
oh man,
kind of a whole different book.
It is. I take life pretty seriously, but also lighthearted a lot. But with the ostomy, before my faith came into the picture, and before I was able to see the lighter side of the entire thing, man, it literally was. It was hell on earth. That's what it was. There was so much anxiety with dealing with it, and if you can't see humor in it, because the world sees humor in our problem, and when you see other people, you can't decipher between, and they might mean it like playfully, and they just might not understand. But when you constantly hear little comments and sayings and things about women who go to the bathroom, guys who this, farts, stinky this, any story about our problem, and people are laughing, that's like, we cause those things that make other people laugh. And we're like, oh my gosh, holy crap, I don't want to be the one who's the source of their humor, their laughter.
Well, or you could come back at it with something even funnier than what they're saying to make them laugh harder, you know?
Oh yeah.
One of my things I say at work sometimes with people, they know I have an ostomy by now, most of them. But somebody will say something like, man, I just can't seem to make this shit work, or some comment with shit. And my first thing, I'll come back at them, depending on my mood, I'll be like, well, at least I keep all my shit together, or I keep my shit in a bag so I don't have to, worry about where it is. I know where it all is. And just something funny, and it just to lighten the mood, because people don't realize that, those things were made because of people like us. And my answer to that is, you're welcome.
That's awesome.
You're laughing and you're welcome. I gave you that reason.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've been so used to, just because of my name being Austin Powers, I'm used to just humor being around when I say my name, people
following you everywhere
about it.
Yeah.
Once I was able to kind of accept and own all this stuff, being able to see that, it just came naturally. It's a whole, I'm still insecure in a lot of different ways. Like my dad has a saying, he says, know where you are on the totem pole. The only time we get hurt is when we don't know where we are on the totem pole. We thought we were higher than we really were, and we aren't happy with that.
Amen.
And so know where you are. And so that's been huge in my life, and being able to understand and know how I feel, what's going to set me off. But at the same time, owning and accepting it allowed me to be able to see the lighter side of it. And it helps other people be able to see that there is goodness in things that are very, very difficult. Like, when I started talking about this stuff, and I'm sure you've seen too, but once you start kind of talking about this stuff and other people dealing with it, we've been through something amazing. And to be able to battle that on a regular basis is, what it does to a person's character. That doesn't come easy, and it makes soldiers out of us. And so it's just a really cool thing to be able to go through it, battle it, and own it for what it is, because you can help so many people.
Well, that's just it. I think we're given these, we have these stories we got to share, we got to let people know, hey, guess what, share your story. Let's hear what you went through, because this is what we went through. And, it's to help other people. I really believe that. I mean, I know that look at Instagram and I see some of the shit people have gone through. I think, man, I've not gone through anything, but we can't compare ourselves. We each have our story, and we just have to be there, present, like you said, accept it, and let's share.
My brother has said, he taught me, I use this line all the time because it's so beautiful, but he said, when everybody puts their problems out on the table and you get to see everyone else's problems, no matter who they are or how bad they are, you want all your own problems right back.
That's right.
Give me these things. I'm good with these.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, y'all keep yours. I'm okay.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so there is an empowering about that. And that's kind of why I wrote my story too, is because even as you're reading that, and as I'd hear other people's stories, when you're reading my book, you are experiencing that someone else is going through something, and you literally feel better about your own problems. It's a strange, it's like physics, if you will. You start seeing what other people are dealing with, and you get a realization that, holy cow, my paradigm is totally shifting to embracing what I'm dealing with and being fine with it. So
yeah,
cool.
Like, it's not so bad. Well, I felt that way when I was reading the first few chapters of your book. I was like, oof, I didn't realize how horrible it was for you. And, we'd only spoken a little bit about it. And I just thought, wow, warrior status way early on. And yeah, you really get a perspective. It shifts your whole perspective.
See, and I look at that. That's all that I went through, and I don't see it as that big of a deal because we're all just survivors. That's all we're doing.
That's it.
I was just dealt a certain deck of cards, and I played the best dang hand I could, and I just kept rolling with it. Mm-hmm. Same with you, same with everyone else, and that's what's cool.
That's true.
Is being able to go, oh, you know what? All of us are winging it. We're all striving as people without health problems. People, when you're raising kids, that's the best advice I give anybody. The best advice I was given was everybody's winging it. The people who have anyone who has advice for you as to when to put your kids to bed, how to get them to walk sooner, they winged it. The people who gave them their advice winged it with their kids. They're only giving you the advice from their narrow perspective. And if you can kind of be a collector of information, that's where you win. Is being able to go, oh man, all right, we've all got our own. If we can kind of collect these stories and become empowered by the things that work and things that don't work, there's something beautiful, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Very cool.
That's awesome. I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, really, all our stories come together. We make a big puzzle, put our pieces together, and create this puzzle. It's cool. Yeah,
This was super cool to be able to get to know you a little bit better and to do a podcast and hear your story. And what stood out to me.
Thanks for having me.
What stood out to me in our conversation, because I come from a big family. I have 7 siblings, and my parents have been together. They had a great marriage. They've been together my whole life. Is that your obedience and your response to how your mom was raising you in that house, rather than rebelling, you were more trusting. You guys were a team together. Basically, you were looking out for her and what she was dealing with, and she was looking out for you, and you both made huge sacrifices, you and your social life. And even being that closed off, you are an incredibly outgoing person. You are super, you're one of those kind of people, even on your Instagram stuff, when you post, it is incredibly inviting just to hear the things that you say, because your heart is so soft in the way that you present it. And I told people, like in my intro before I even called, that it's that maternal side to you that has drawn me to love following you, because I've always been a mama's boy. And when we started talking, you were like telling me, you're so young, Austin. And I was just laughing. But I love that maternal side. It was given to you from your mom. And that is so beautiful. And
Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Austin. Yeah, I appreciate that. I really do. That means a lot to me. I was very excited to do this. I've never done anything like this before. And when you asked me, I thought, oh my gosh, what do I have to bring to the table? I better like think of something good, right? Like,
You got Barb, man. That's what you got. Bring her. Sit her down.
She's here. She's here. Yeah. So thank you. And I appreciate it. I look forward to hearing this. And I've shared this information with my friends, and they're excited to hear the podcast. And I'm just excited to be on this journey with you, Austin.
Hey, well, very cool. Well, thank you very much. And thank you all for listening. This has been awesome. Have a good one.
Yes.
Hey everybody, go to my website, theostomyguy.com. Order my book, Memoirs of a Bagman, The Ostomy Guy Story. There's a button on there that says buy now. It'll take you to Amazon, or you can go straight to Amazon.com. Memoirs of a Bagman, The Ostomy Guy Story. Check it out.